Minutes away from start time. So thanks everyone for joining today. This is our second in a series of 3 webcasts that are all the same, with really just an opportunity for us as CA and the product management team to present the upcoming Bamboo release, give you a high-level overview of that information, what's new from a features perspective, the rough timeline of that release, and then we'll have an additional series of webcasts where each webcast we're hoping to schedule about 1 a week starting in late April and going on for about 6 to 8 weeks, where each week we'll focus on a different new feature and do a deep dive on that feature, spend an hour specifically on that feature, just to give you everything you need to know. Certainly we want to make sure you're aware of all the new features and the value and can use those when you're ready. My name is Rich Graves. I'm on the product management team here at CA for Cloud Service Management, and also on the line is Sandeep Soman. I'll be giving a presentation at the beginning here for about 15-20 minutes, then handing over Sandeep for a demo of Bamboo, and then I will close it out with a summary, a couple other additional details that we won't cover in the demo, and then any questions that certainly that you have. Just a reminder, and it's on this first slide, all lines are on mute. If you have a question at any point, use the Q&A on WebEx. Sandeep or myself will be monitoring that at all times. We'll be rotating back and forth and making sure that any questions you have get answered. If it's something that's worth discussing with the whole group, we'll certainly raise that on the phone as well. Okay, so brief agenda for the day. I'll talk a little bit, very briefly, on the vision and sort of what our focus is as a product management team for Cloud Service Management. Then jump into the marquee features, hand over to Sandeep for a demonstration of Bamboo. We're certainly not going to go through everything in the demonstration. It'll be a very high-level demo of what's new and some of the key things there. Talk about some additional details in the timeline, and then summary and questions. And we'll break a few points during the presentation for questions as well. So, but before I start, when I talk through these next couple slides, I'm going to go ahead and put up a poll. So you should see this poll in WebEx, typically in the bottom right corner, below your speakers panel or below the top panel there. So I'll just leave that up for a bit and you can take a look at that. A couple questions on participating in Bamboo, the alpha or the beta, as well as the timing of this webcast as we try to figure out what works best, given that we're offering this at many different times. So as far as the focus as a product management team, what our goals are with this product, and what our goal is really from a competitive standpoint, how we stand out and how we believe we can make your organization better with Cloud Service Management. Really the core focus is total cost of ownership. So there's a lot that goes into total cost of ownership. It's how much time does it take you to get up and running on the solution. As a SaaS solution, certainly there's no installation anymore, but there is the fact that you have to configure your processes inside the tool. So making that easy to use, easy to configure, and hopefully getting faster time to value. So that's really about how fast can you get up and running and deliver value in the system, out of the system. So how fast can you get your team, working on incident management, working on problem or change, or using discovery, configuring automation integrations. So all the features that you'll see today all focus in one area or another on trying to make the total cost of ownership for our tool and your environment lower and lower. And that could be in making your processes more efficiently, making it faster for you to resolve tickets, make it easier for you to build and manage workflow, and build and manage integrations as well. So I think that's the key thing to remember. Everything you see, that we're always focused on that area, that core area. Okay. So on to Bamboo, and I'll talk through the marquee features here. And the marquee features, again, we're not going to talk through every single small feature that's in this Bamboo release. We'll talk about sort of the key big features that are going in. There's references to the release notes. The release notes have all the details, and the wiki site is public for this release, and you can see it there. First question, and I always get it, and I always mention it, is why in the world are we calling this release Bamboo? Bamboo, we use essentially code names, and now they're release names for lucky symbols around the world. So if you're familiar, we used Acorn for the last release, which was we didn't sort of publicly use that name, but we're using these release names because our releases are going to be very frequent. and release numbering doesn't mean anything anymore. And the seasons didn't work for our friends in Australia, so it makes more sense just to use these names. They're names that will live in the environment for 3 to 4 months before the next release. So bamboo is a lucky symbol and will be followed by clover. So look for more on clover coming next. Okay, so bamboo is all about becoming more service-centric. And I think that's a funny phrase to say when we're talking about an IT service management product. But I think most organizations, and us as a vendor, are overly focused in the past on tickets. So we focus on managing tickets, and that's the piece of work you track to resolve a customer's issue. But without linking that to a service, you're not getting as much insight of the value you're adding to your organization, how things are tracking against services and business critical functions inside your organization. So what we really tried to do is focus on making all those aspects of designing, automating, and measuring services much easier and make that a continuous thread through the product. So what Sandeep will show you is that the process to create a service now is a step-by-step process that we guide you through. There's step 1, step 2, step 3. And with those steps, it connects to, after you've defined that service, it connects to defining the catalog items associated with that service. So if you're building a Microsoft Exchange service, maybe one of the catalog items you immediately create is create an account on Exchange, or reset a password on Exchange, or create an inbox. So you can build those catalog items to associate them with your service so that it's much easier to think in service-centric terms with the way this is built. Next is on automation, automating the service. So now that you have your service defined, you have your catalog items associated with it, what's the support process to deliver that service? So you can, in a much easier way, automate the support processes in a graphical way that you'll see. You can automate the integration or fulfillment of those services. So connecting to VMware to give someone a brand new virtual machine, you can do that in an automated fashion. And then lastly is measurement. I think measurement is often one of the most important things because it's very difficult to define all the different metrics that you need to understand, are you performing well as a service management organization for the business services that you support. So what we've done, and we'll talk more about this, is made a lot of out-of-the-box metrics that every time you create and save a new service, we start collecting these metrics, and within 24 hours, you're going to immediately see metrics coming back on the mean time to resolution, response time, number of unique requesters, number of incidents. So you see all those metrics automatically, so you don't have to build a new report every time you create a new service. It's a really nice way to do that as well. So first I'll talk a little bit about, more in depth on sort of that design, automate, measure flow. So when we talk about design, one of the things we've really noticed from talking to many different organizations and doing research was that there's a need for ad hoc task or project management within IT service management. So we talk to many organizations that when they have a major outage or a major incident inside their organization, they bring everybody into a room or get on a WebEx or a conference call, and some person is leading that incident and assigning tasks to a bunch of people. And that person may be putting those in an email, putting those in a spreadsheet, and then communicating out to the team. And there's some massive email thread that's going around that everybody's replying to. And it's just not an efficient way to work, especially because in most cases you're linking those to CIs, or those discussions or tasks to CIs or services inside your ITSM tool. You're linking them to people that are associated with ITSM. You're linking them to tickets that are associated with ITSM. So all of that is all an integrated process, and you're losing that integration point with the tool when you're doing it in email and spreadsheets. We've seen lots of people have, copy and paste the link, put it in a spreadsheet, and they have to maintain that. So what we did was build this simple ad hoc project management right into the tool. It allows linking tickets, linking CIs, linking services, and of course using all your users that you've defined already to be able to create ad hoc projects, add tasks in a simple Kanban fashion. So I'm familiar with Kanban boards. I've seen them all the time when I go to people's offices where there's the to-do list, the doing, and the done columns. And it's a matter of essentially dragging and dropping these tasks as they move forward and progress to being done. So if you think about a major outage, the DB team needs to do some research, the server team needs to recycle, Apache or something. You can assign those tasks, and those people can do their tasks and move them to the done column. And it's very clear and visible from the team as they're all working on these tasks, what's going on in the environment and what's going on related to this incident. And the same applies to change management. There's so much work that goes into change management before someone actually submits a change request. All that work is being done today in your environments. It's probably being done with a team via email or spreadsheets or whatever they're using. But those things are being lost and not managed as well as they could be if you're using something collaborative and integrated with those change requests, those CIs, and those services. So that's important to note. And one key question we always get is, this by no means is a project and portfolio management solution, and it doesn't intend to be. It is very much an ad hoc tool for the ITSM team to manage the work that they're already doing, just manage it in a much integrated and better way. Next is the process designer. So I know all of you on the phone are familiar with workflow actions and auto routes and communication templates as they're defined today. Those will continue to exist, and as you're upgraded to Bamboo, you use those exactly the same. Those forms still exist, but over time we'll be transitioning to this new designer, which we call process designer, which is a much more visual and integrated way to build your processes to manage the life cycle of a ticket. So what you can see in the left side of the screenshot, that's the canvas where you can drag and drop different steps of your process. So this is essentially, a workflow for I think this is a service request, incident. For an incident, and so an incident enters this flow, and this is the process based on the entry criteria, the matching conditions that you define, the process that a incident will go down. So you can have things like approvals, you can trigger automation tasks to trigger our automation connectors to do something like reset a password in Active Directory or connect to Amazon and create an EC2 instance. A lot of really powerful stuff here. And I think what's most powerful about this is that it is visual. You see the process end to end as you're building and creating it. And that was very difficult before with the way workflow actions are built. They were built very independently, and if you wanted to build a whole flow, you had to be very careful on how you set up the exact phases and the transitions and make sure that you didn't have any typos. So we wanted to eliminate that and make it less error prone, much more visual and easier to do, and ultimately drive down the cost and the time that it takes you to build these workflows. Okay. Next on to more on automation. So out of the box, if you're not familiar with our automation module today, it's really powerful and really exciting, and what's most important about it is it's so easy to use. So these are the out-of-the-box automation connectors that we provide. So we provide integrations with Active Directory and Exchange, our own CA, Clarity PPM, and release automation software. Release automation can allow you to, from a change request, trigger a DevOps flow and implementation of a release. We have virtualization tools like Amazon and VMware, and then communication protocols like PowerShell and Secure Shell, which allow you to run commands on Windows or Unix or Linux servers. And those are really powerful because you can do things like from your workflow, could be triggered from a change. It could be giving a select user that's about to do a patch, giving them rights to that server, or stopping services and starting services on a specific server. So some really cool stuff you can do there to automate and improve things. Additionally, we certainly know with every release we'll be adding more and more connectors to allow you to integrate with third-party systems in an easy and codeless way. But we know there's no way we're going to be able to create everything out of the box that you want. So now we do have the ability to create what we call app connectors, which are essentially custom connectors that you can build on your own without code. They're very much form-based. You need to know the service you're connecting to and understand that API at a high level, what method you want to call and what input parameters you need to send to it. But there's no coding, no Java, no JavaScript or anything. And this is a list here of the different integrations that we tested as part of our QA cycle, and making sure that this was a robust tool to be able to connect to different services via REST API. So HipChat and Jira and TeamCity and Dell for warranty details, Informatica, which has a SMS text-basing notification engine. So some really cool stuff that you can do here, and the nice thing is it's open for you to be able to build what you need for your organization. So I've already talked to companies about different Oracle integrations they want to do, or Workday or Salesforce, to be able to automate different items from the catalog. Okay. Next on Service View. So if you haven't heard about Service View before, I think this is a really nice approach to being able to easily define your services. So when Sandeep shows the demonstration, what you'll see is it's a very step-by-step guided process to create a new service. So you go in, it prompts you for the name of the service, the logo and icon for that service to make it easy to find in the system visually. And then you go and you subscribe organizations, you add a little bit more detail in the service, and then you immediately you can connect catalog items and, of course, associated workflows. The benefit of that not only is the ease of use of really trying to reduce the learning curve of creating services and make it much easier to create those in your environment, but also on measurement. So the screenshot here is really once you've created several services, when you can see the output of those services. So each time a new service is created, we're immediately creating all these metrics. So there's a set of warning metrics, which things we want you as a manager to take a look and maybe take a look and understand what's going on with these services. And there's also normal metrics, which are metrics that are typically trending up. What are positive metrics related to the services where the mean time to resolution or the mean time to response is improving, and you can look at more in depth at that and try to understand. So it's really about measuring how you're doing as a support organization related to the services that you defined, and being able to compare those services as well. Where are you doing a good job on certain services? Where are you doing not such a good job, and opportunities for improvement as well. Okay, next is on asset management. So we've had asset management for just about a year now in the tool, and what we heard from many of our managed service provider customers is the need to do essentially a multi-tenant asset management. So asset management, originally came out, it was focused on really single tenant, so having assets for one organization and being able to do discovery for one organization. Now it's multi-tenant, allowing you to do discovery of multiple environments, and each one of those discoveries you can associate it with a specific organization. So if you have, as a large organization, if you have multiple departments, or if you're a managed service provider and you're managing several outside customers or organizations, you can do a different discovery of each one of those environments. You can use our native discovery tool, you can use Microsoft SCCM or Landesk or Altiris or a variety of different tools. Do those discoveries, bring that inventory information back into the asset repository, and associate it immediately to an organization. So that allows filtering and associating with those assets with tickets for people within that organization. It's a really powerful way to get lots more asset information into the system in an easy way. Okay.
This is all related to assets, right?
Yes, yep, the multi-tenant discovery and asset management is specifically related to assets. Okay. Next on advanced reports. So with some improvements on advanced reporting, there's three key things I think we did for advanced reporting, all trying to simplify really the learning curve and the process to use advanced reports. First, we really simplified the way you used custom fields within the default domain, which essentially is the database, so the view you use to create advanced reports from. Now it's essentially the screenshot in the back there is essentially you see a list of all the custom fields in the tool. You can quickly check which ones you actually want to use, and then hit a sync button, and they're immediately available for reporting. And they come with their actual data type. They're available in the tickets data set. much easier process to use these fields than it was before. Additionally, we added several new data sets for assets and IT projects and tasks. There's a lot more in there now. And we added a whole series of new calculated fields. So what we found from our customers where when they're building reports on tickets and trying to understand, what's the difference between open time and close time, they could build all those calculations. But we wanted to add those in out of the box so it's a much easier process to build more complex reports that need calculations in them. So there's a whole slew of those. All of those are in the release notes, and you can take a look at that and see more detail on those. Last and certainly not least is the user interface. So if you haven't seen Bamboo before, it's not a brand new interface, but there's lots of small improvements that overall come together to make a very nice difference with this release. The theme has changed, so we took a lot of feedback from customers on the amount of white space we had, the backgrounds, having better viewability of fields and sections. So there's a lot of minor color changes that I think as a whole you may notice, but on their own they're very small, but have lots of impact. Also, you do have user selectable themes. So we have a series of lighter themes and we have a series of darker themes that change the background colors and the header and some of the section bands, the blue or green. So you'll notice that difference as well. We also added what's called responsive design to many of the screens. So if you look at like the asset form today, in the release today, is a single column, of data. So all of the fields that you input, it's a single column down the form, and certainly makes that a long scrolling form if you have a lot of details you want to add. What we've done is for users who have wider screen monitors or larger resolution on their browsers, they can see 1, 2, 3, or 4 columns of data across horizontally. So we're leveraging that horizontal real estate in a much better way. So you'll see that a lot, and generally all the screens, we've reduced the amount of padding on the left and the right. So we're using much more real estate, and I think you'll find it a much better usability experience than the previous release. Okay, now I will pass it over to Sandeep for demonstration. So while we're transitioning, any questions on the phone? And anyone on the phone, it is #6 to unmute yourself. If you have a phone question, I'll look at what's come over on the WebEx as well. Sandeep, I can see your desktop, but I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was on mute there. Thanks, Rich.
No problem. You are on.
Awesome. So I think there was one question that I was just talking about on the chat, about the making the material available just on the wiki or any other source. So right now, I think, Rich, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically the release notes and pretty much everything related to the product documentation is on the wiki, and there are certain articles that we publish to the cookbooks on Flipboard, and those are the primary areas. We can go and get some information about Bamboo.
Yeah, about that, we used to see some videos on the YouTube about it. A lot of things in the last version. So it will be some kind of video about any customizations in the system.
Yes.
And I can take that, Sandeep. So we do have, there's about 10 videos already live on YouTube. We did post those to the community as well. You can find them in the community. If you search for Bamboo, you'll find everything related to this. So the release notes, the wiki's been live for about 2 months, and we posted that to the community as well. We'll be rolling out about 30 more training videos for this release in May. In early May, you should see about 15 or 20 go, and then the rest in later in the month. And then look for our education courseware as far as training courses to be updated as well.
Okay, that's very nice. Thank you.
Sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Rich. So, we'll start off the demo with the service view and, essentially transition from the service view, what it's, meant for, how we can use it, all the way then down to creating services, associating catalog offerings with it and the process workflows that Rich also mentioned in his presentation there. So on this screen, the intent of the service view, like Rich said, was really to get more visibility into how your services are doing, right? So it's not so much about ticketing and then running reports off of tickets to kind of, percolate that up to the service level. It was more in terms of, if I were the IT director or, a service owner, I want to come to that one place where I can see all the services that I own or that I'm interested in and see how it's doing, right? So this is the 30,000-foot level view of your services, and this is, the good part of the metrics, right? So, for example, from a response standpoint, we are up by 83%, and yes, this is demo data, but essentially just conveying the message that we improved on the SLAs for Link, and then we reduced the number of incidents from 31 to now 1, right? So these are the good services. But the most interesting ones would be really the ones that need your action or your attention, right? So in this case, these are, I would say, the flip side of the good ones. So while Link was doing well on the SLA side, you can see here that it's seeing an increase in the number of incidents that are coming in. And, from a service owner standpoint or even an IT director standpoint, I can start drilling down from that 30,000 level view to, seeing what's going on right into the individual tickets itself, right? The other way of looking at it is, well, I know there are all these tickets going on, but let me take a look at the service and see what the service owner is doing about it, right? So in this case, I can click from there, go into the service details, look at, who's the owner. I can also say, okay, there's some issues going on with Link. Are there any related projects or work going on to improve that? And so this is where, the new module for project planning is coming into the fore, where it is kind of a triangle where you have the tickets related to CIs. CIs can be related to projects, and projects, again, can be related to tickets. So it's well integrated in the sense that it is one tool, it's one module that you have access to all these different elements there. Okay. I think there was a question there. I'm sorry. So Fernando, there was a question about is this a vision on the all system or just for a specific queue? Good question. So this is really based on filters. So right now, as an admin, I have access to all these services, but you can pretty much narrow it down to just a certain organization if you're an MSP, or a service owner if you're in control of only these services in the system. The other thing also to note here is that it is driven by what we call the org-based security. So if you have implemented that, and if you have certain service owners coming in from even the customer side, they can only see the services that they are supposed to see. So those underlying principles and security guidelines, they all apply to this workspace as well in terms of the data that you see here. Okay.
So it's not only for administrators.
Correct. So this is just like another workspace, if you will, and you can drive permissions on the workspace to say, Fernando gets it, but Sandeep doesn't get it, right? And Fernando can see the services that he's supposed to see, especially if you have OBS enabled. So you can control as an admin who gets what from a workspace standpoint, and then all the way down to the OBS level also.
All right.
Okay. Good question. Yeah, and I think, if you're asking questions on the Q&A, Rich can answer as we're going along instead of me peeking into the chat window here and there. Okay, all right. So to continue from where we left off, again, on the Link service, as I was saying, we can look at projects that are related to it. And yes, there was a project that, we rolled out Link some time back, and there's project related to that. But the thing that catches my attention is, well, there is something going on about improvements to Link, right? So I can go into that, and again, based on permissions and everything else, this, those projects would be either visible or not visible to me. In this case, I come in here, and right away, I see the project for service improvements. And this is where, this is the new module that we're introducing with Bamboo that allows you to do very simple, operationally focused project planning and bridges that gap between the planning folks and the operational folks, right? So we have, several customers, including our own internal IT, that used, different tools for planning. Everything from, third-party systems to spreadsheets, right? And then they would try and create tickets on the CSM side to essentially, go through the execution part of it, if you will. So what happens here, though, is now you can come in here and you can say, yep, I will have, task 1, task 2. I can plan those things out. And I can also create a ticket right from here or even link it up to the task itself, right? So again, it gives you that view, that unified view from all the way from planning to execution to the measurement aspect of it, which is really what we started with on the Service View workspace. Okay. A couple of smaller things here. Things from a time management standpoint. So not only can you create these tasks and assign it to people, but you can also tell them to give some estimates for these tasks, right, based on what they think it is. They can give their estimates, and everything then rolls up to the project level, right? So in this case, from all the different tasks that you've created and all the different owners that came in, you can put in your estimates, that rolls up. And then the good thing is we also will measure the actual time, right? So from an actual time standpoint, it is more in terms of you can put in some time, let's just say I put in an hour for some work there, and it basically goes in and updates the project level to say from all these different tasks now from 5 to 6 hours. So it kind of just gives you a good variance to say how good the planning was and how we can improve it for the next project from a time management standpoint. Okay. The one other thing from a times perspective is when you do have these tickets associated with the task, the time spent on the ticket rolls up to the task level, and then the task obviously rolls up into the project. So in essence, you can start off with a project that says, I want to plan this rollout of this new service. I have these project tasks that I have created, and some of the tasks have tickets. You can pretty much get visibility into the total work effort at the project level as things happen within the organization, whether it is at the project task level or the ticketing level. Okay.
Hey, Sandeep, one question that just came in. When you associate or create a ticket from a task, is there any limitation on the ticket type, or can it be any type of ticket?
It can be any type of ticket, right? So in this case, when you're creating a ticket at the very beginning, this is a default service request. But if I were to go into a ticket and say, I want to either create a new incident or a service request or anything else, or relate an existing ticket, I can pretty much get all of them, right? Service requests, incidents, changes, problems, all of that, and link it back to the ticket. Okay. Okay. Sorry. And again, some of the simplicity that we wanted to bring into this overall planning was to say, well, you can drag and drop. You can add more swim lanes if you wanted to put in, let's just say you wanted to put in a lane to park blockers. You could do that. And it just gives you nice visibility into, again, what's working, what's, in my to-do bucket, things that are in progress and things that are done, right? So again, nice and easy way of the task and the linkage that goes with it. Okay, so that's from a ticketing from a project planning standpoint. And again, everything is contextual, so you can, at any point you can click on the ticket on the task and then basically go right to the ticket itself to see what's going on with that ticket. In this case, we are having some issues with the gateway deployment, and that's linked back to the project task about rolling out that new update. So again, full connection and visibility into the whole thing there. Okay. So again, as an IT director, I have come in here, I've looked at the service view, I looked at the owner, I looked at some of the projects going on, and that's a good way of, kind of managing the work from that perspective. Now, if I go back to the service view and I said, maybe we want to roll out a new service, or I want to make changes to an existing one, you can start defining a service right from the service view. And again, we wanted to take that whole intimidation factor out of the mix here for defining a service, and basically made it a very conversational, friendly, wizard-driven approach to defining the service. Now, before I do anything here, I just want to take a step back and say there are about 3 steps in defining a service, right? So or rather rolling out a service. So you can define the service here, like we have, and you can have a set of offerings or catalog items that go with it linked to the service. And then obviously for each of those offerings that you can have a process workflow that goes along with it. So again, very simple, quick 3-step process to defining a service and having some catalog offerings with it, and then basically having a workflow associated with them. Okay. So in this case, let's go ahead and go through a simple process of creating a service and then creating a catalog item for that and associating a workflow for it. In the current version also, we can do these things, but it is, flying through different screens and essentially, doing the point and click thing versus more of the visual drag and drop that we'll see in the designer in a second there. Okay. So from a service catalog, again, you can put in an existing catalog item that you want to associate to this storage service that I'm creating, or you can actually go ahead and create a new one, saying, to storage service request, make that a simple service request. And this is where you're defining that offering for this particular service, right? So in this case, actually, we'll just call it request increase in storage limits. If I can get that spelled right. And again, pretty straightforward, very simple. You've defined the basic properties for that. Now you can come in and add more fields to it. You can also see that because I started from defining that service, we already do some of the backend for you to say, okay, obviously the catalog that you're creating is related to that service, so I already set it up for you. And then again, if there are any other fields that you want to set, you could do that as well. Okay. You can also set what permissions or who can do this in terms of the catalog itself. And then in here, you may want to attach it with a storage workflow that you have created, right? So again, very simple, very straightforward. I came in from here, I created a service, and for this particular service, I have also created a catalog offering, and that basically is now linked up to this particular service, and I can now start using the service, right? So again, very simple definition and offerings in there from that perspective. Okay. I'll pause here for any questions that may have come up before we go into the workflow aspect of it. Any questions?
One other question that came in on projects. Can a project task be created directly through email like tickets can today?
No, so we don't have that ability today, but that is in the pipeline to get that as well into the mix there. So pretty much the same kind of a structure as tickets. You'll have an email box that you can configure for a project, and basically that would be the email box for creating tasks within that. But not in Bamboo. That's further down the road there. Okay.
That's it for now.
Awesome. Okay. So again, from a service definition standpoint, we went through the wizard, but behind the scenes, it's done pretty much all the things that we wanted it to do. Whether it was the categorization, the organization, all of that stuff has been already created. Plus the attributes and the setup that we have today for defining based on the CCTI, those all come into play here. So again, very quick, very easy way of defining it, and also seeing that the service catalog that we just created, that's also linked up to this one. Okay. Now, from a workflow standpoint, you saw how we linked up an existing workflow to this particular catalog item. But what if you wanted to create something from scratch? So in this case, let me take the existing one that we have, the one that we just linked up, and check this thing out for editing. While I do that, a quick note on that. So you can have workflows that you have configured, and you can publish them. So as tickets come into the system, they will go through the process of figuring out what workflow applies and basically fall into that model. But if you did want to make changes to it, we allow you to check out the service or the workflow for editing. But in the meantime, if any tickets come in that match that match that workflow, it would still go into the published version of it. So it's almost like a version control, basically keeping the published version and allowing you to edit it in a new copy, if you will, as you go through it. Okay. So again, pretty straightforward here in terms of creating a workflow. And the big difference here is that, you can do your workflow actions today in CSM, but they are, again, while they're dynamic and easy to configure, they're still individual items that you're pointing and clicking and trying to remember what goes where and what action leads to the next action as you go through that process. So in this case, with Bamboo, what we've done is we have gotten it into the visual designer part of it, and you can essentially create entry criteria rules, which is think of it as a super auto route that says if it matches these conditions, fall into this workflow, right? And then within this workflow, you can have multiple assignments, and you can have multiple granular assignment rules as well, in the sense that, I might have this for for applications, right? So anything to do with an application, any incident, in this case service request, will fall into this workflow. But if I had a higher level of granularity to say if it was applications but SAP, then it goes to Rich. But if it was application exchange, it goes to Sandeep. So, you can have those kind of rules set up here as well from a flexibility standpoint, okay? Some of the other things, again, what you're used to from an action are available here for setting fields and sending off notifications or communication templates. But the cool part here is really the way you would want to, configure your workflow. So let's just say this was as simple as it gets, came in, you have an action to accept ownership, and then you close the ticket. But what if we wanted to wait for the customer and say that this is, pending requested information, for example, right? So let's just call this pending customer callback. And yes, you can set the same permissions, who gets the particular action and so on and so forth. And in this case, when I dragged it, because I had highlighted this box before, it automatically connects there. But what I can do is I can say it doesn't go there. It actually goes in from this box, it goes in here, right? So again, I can make it very simple and just put it in this format. And then from here, if I wanted to go back to accept ownership, then I can do that as well, right? So pretty straightforward to say from accept ownership, it comes into close ticket. Accept ownership also has pending customer callback, and then from there, it can go back into the ownership, okay? And then if you have to close it, just close it. So again, the concept being that it is very simple, drag and drop, and this is the workflow now you'll get when any ticket matching this condition fell into this workflow, okay? We have a whole bunch of actions in here. They pretty much reflect what you can do today with a few more additions. So for example, if I were in customer pending call, and I were to say, I want a submit for approval, and right away you'll see the submit for approval comes with two boxes. One is on approval, what you want to do, which is another set of actions, or on rejection, what do you want to do, right? And that would be a few more things in there. The other part of it, and Rich covered that briefly, was the fact that now, you can bring in automation into your process workflows. In other words, so far you've been doing accept ownership, close ticket, and then people who are using the automation module, you're configuring your workflow in the automation designer and then linking it up through web services. Now you can do all of that in one place, right? So if you come in here and you say, well, I have a connector that I want to use that CA provided, or I want to create my own, Dell warranty connector or a Jira one, you could pretty much use that. Let me just search if I have still the Jira one, yep, and use the credentials and basically say what are the operations that I created for this app connector, right? If I wanted to create an issue from CSM into the Jira system, right there I have the workflow, and it'll allow you to map certain fields that it's asking for, and then obviously the usual permission set notify aspect of it. So again, what we are trying to do here is really simplify the way you would manage these workflows, make it super simple, make it easy, visual. You don't have to know which action leads to the other action. It's all there in one view. And again, you can bring automation into the mix, and a whole bunch of other possibilities now start opening up from that perspective. Okay.
Hey, Sandeep, two questions that came in that I think are important for everybody to know is, will existing workflows that are migrated forward or upgraded, will those come into this, or is there, what's the process to get them in here?
Yep, excellent question. And yeah, so for existing customers, it'll be business as usual, right? So when Bamboo rolls into production, and this is what I tell everybody, right? Nothing changes for the customer, and that's an absolute awesome, successful upgrade for us. So the same thing with Bamboo. When things go in, it's still business as usual. You still have your auto routes. You still have your actions. Everything the way it used to work will still work. The way you want to use the process designer is basically either use the migration utility to say, I'm ready to migrate some of these things here because it just makes it much easier to manage. And I can use the migration utility that essentially walks you through the steps to say, take a look at, I'll just put something in here so I can give a quick demo. And you can basically say, what are some of the actions that you want to put in here, and then go with those, right? So in this case, I probably don't have much in here because we just created it. But the point being, you have all your workflow actions that would be available, and then you can basically select all of them and bring them into the new workflow designer. Again, the way it would work when a new ticket comes in, it's going to first look for the process workflow to see if there is anything that matches that criteria and fall into this workflow. If it doesn't see anything, it's going to go back to the auto routes and say, okay, let me go to the auto route world of, looking at each rule and then the actions that come out of it. So, from a customer standpoint, it is at your own pace. Nothing changes for you day one. As you decide to say, okay, I want to really streamline this, I want to take, maybe the incident process and bring that into the mix here, sure, go ahead and do that. Your auto routes and your workflow actions, you don't have to reconfigure anything. Use the migration utility to bring them into the workflow designer. Okay.
And the same thing does apply. I know we have a few customers on the line that are still using NSD6 and will be migrating forward. The same applies to them as existing CSM customers that are just going to be upgraded to Bamboo. So same approach.
Absolutely. Yep. So same exact approach. Same thing would apply to them as well. New ticket comes in. It's going to look for a process workflow. It will not find any, and then it'll go back to the auto routes and do it that way. So that really helps you to kind of, phase out the old way of doing it at your own pace and coming back into this streamlined version of the visual drag and drop flows. Okay. And there are a whole host of smaller things in here that I've not covered, but things such as when you are ready to republish it. Actually, I have a whole bunch of errors in here, but you can actually validate whether this workflow that you just configured will conflict with any other workflow that you have, and we didn't have that before, right? It was more of do the workflow and then let's see where the ticket goes, kind of a deal here. So this will examine and validate the other workflows and see where, where tickets are going to come in and if there is any conflicts. So yeah. I see a whole bunch of questions here.
We should have addressed all those. We can, address specific ones on IAM. on the Q&A, but I think we're good to move forward now.
Okay.
I'm keeping an eye on time here.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the only other thing that I wanted to cover here real quickly, because we're talking about the automation, the app connectors, is with Bamboo, and like Rich said, while we provide, CA provides a whole bunch of connectors that come out of the box, there's only so much we can put out there. So we really wanted to extend this and make this powerful for our customers to come in and create their own connectors and use that to interact with systems either on the cloud or even behind the firewall that they may have on-prem. Okay, so in this case, you can go in, create your own connector. Again, very simple, and it literally walks you through taking that example of the Dell warranty check. And basically walks you through for each field, what you want to do. And I'll just put something so that we can go ahead. On cloud, is it on-prem? If it is on cloud or on-prem, it's all RESTful based. So you put in the URL that you're going to get to, and then are you going to use JSON or XML for interacting with that? We do have 3 different authentication types. There is none, which is basically saying just connect to it, like the Dell warranty that doesn't really care about authentication, and the others. Again, this caters to most of the systems out there. We are still looking to, again, improve that and see how we can get more and more stuff into the mix there, right? And then finally, you go ahead and create the operations to say, take that base URL and extend it for, a warranty check. In this case, it's warranty/tags.xml. That will give you what Dell is asking for warranty checks. And then you have your input parameters and your output parameters, which basically comes back into the ticket itself, right? So again, very simple, very easy, but allows you to essentially go ahead and create these kind of operations that you can use in your workflow now. And this is a good example of how we did this with Jira, where if you wanted to exchange tickets or update a comment from CSM to Jira, again, it's a very easy way of doing that using automation and the workflow designer. Okay. I know we are running short on time here, so as Rich mentioned, we'll follow up with more deep dive sessions for each of these areas, whether it is the service view, whether it's the process designer, connections, the asset discovery, we didn't even get into that, or reporting. We'll have follow-up sessions that focus just on those areas, so we can really, get deep in the details and make sure everybody understands how we can use it. Okay.
All right. So I'll go ahead and take control back, Sandeep, if that's all right.
Yep.
Okay. You'll have to let me know to make sure the slides actually are moving.
Yep.
So
nice.
Can you see the additional details?
Yes. Yep. You're good.
Okay. Excellent. There was one more question, Sandeep, if you could look at the Q&A manager that I think you can help answer.
Sure. Yep.
So we have about 5 minutes left. Feel free to ask any more questions on Q&A. I always try to stay on about 5 minutes after the call. If there's anything else that comes in, and I'll address those, we'll certainly post it to the community after we finish all these webcasts. But a few other critical things that we want to mention, and again, this deck will be shared as well. A few other additional enhancements. We will have support for deleting all the different advanced report types. So we have some gaps in how to manage those reports, so you can delete ad hoc views, reports, and dashboards in advanced reporting. Additionally, the Sidekick has been updated with all the new features that we just talked about. So if you're familiar with Sidekick, which is our admin tool that helps you sort of walk through and configure the tool, it is updated for all these new features. So especially something like if you're not using automation or asset discovery, it's great to walk through those again. The videos have all been updated, and the videos now are embedded in English, Spanish, and Brazilian Portuguese, our most popular languages for the tool. Also, change management, there's some nice enhancements there related to change types and enforcing CIs before approval that you can choose to use. In the ticket detail summary, this is a minor improvement, but just showing more of the key attributes that you need to know in that summary widget on the right-hand panel. So minor improvements, but things we want to make sure you're aware of. On the AD Sync tool, one of my favorite things is when you download the AD Sync utility, it populates a lot of the fields automatically for you based on your environment. Previously, people had to call support and get those details, and that certainly isn't a great experience. Standard reports, we'll have more discussions on this. Standard reports are available in Bamboo, and you'll see the exact same things you saw in the previous release. But we are shifting our focus to advanced reporting, so we're not going to be enhancing those standard reports anymore, and eventually after in an upcoming release, we will remove those. So more coming there, but we want to just make sure everyone's aware that we're shifting our focus to advanced reports and certainly spending more time and effort on improving those to make them better for you. The recommended browsers. Yes, was there a question?
Yeah, I got one. Since we don't have any more standard reports, you guys planning to do a specific session about advanced report in Bamboo?
Yes, and just to be clear, standard reports are still there. They're still there in this release. You can still build them. You can still edit your standard reports. But our focus is shifting to advanced reports. So I want to give you plenty of notice to let you know where we're going directionally. Okay. And we can have, there's lots, if you go to the community, there's tons of information on advanced reporting there. And I think that's probably the most active topic on the community as well.
Okay.
Additionally, the recommended browsers for analysts and administrators continue to be Firefox and Chrome. Firefox and Chrome just do a much, much better job of handling JavaScript and HTML5 than Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer can be used by end users, and it'll work fine for end users, but sort of our most active users, performance is dramatically better on Chrome and Firefox, so we recommend you use those. The mobile app as well will work with Bamboo when the release comes out. It'll work with Bamboo and the previous release, so it is backward compatible. The mobile app, we will have some updates coming. It continues to be focused on self-service users, and we'll be adding some functionality, including single sign-on support for the mobile app, so self-service users don't have to know their cloud service management password and username. They can use their corporate username and password. Last, guardrails. So if you're familiar with guardrails, these are something we started releasing in the last release. These are essentially product usage limitations to ensure good performance of the system in your environment. So essentially, there's a couple examples I've put here. If you think about the examples here, it's just preventing, long load times on tickets or problems with, opening tickets and overall performance of the system. So, maximum number of work logs on a ticket is one example of 1,000. If you go more than that, we'll prevent you from that. So it's so hopefully you're not going to run into that one. Maximum number of levels in the organization hierarchy is 10, and also another example is the number of active auto routes you can have per a ticket is 500. For those of you that are existing customers on the phone, if you go beyond these guardrails today, we have essentially made you exempt from those guardrails because we don't want to hurt any of our existing customers. Certainly if you have 501 active auto routes on ticket types, will allow you to be exempt from that one. But any other guardrails, certainly that you're not going beyond these set defaults, those do still apply. All the guardrails are documented in the release notes. You'll get warnings when you get within, about 20% of hitting one of those limits. And then, of course, you'll get an error message when you actually hit the limit or go over that limit. The timeline for the release, and I know we're about a minute over, and I'll try to wrap up here in just another minute or two. We will be rolling out in the staging environments first. We focused on about a data center at a time. So with data centers in Europe, in Australia, and North America. So the European data center staging environment goes out at the end of April, and then approximately 2 weeks later, we go into production. The same for the other data centers. We do it in a staggered fashion to make sure everything is working well. So all the exact dates will go out on the product community and the wiki, and hopefully all of you are also receiving emails from me on that. But look at the community in the wiki for all those updates on that and exact timelines, which should go out early next week. Lastly, in summary, again, the timeline I think is most important to many of you. So staging starts in Europe the last week of April, and we'll go into North America. I know many of you from North America and South America using our North America data center. Bamboo will go into staging in mid-May, and then late May, early June, it will go out into production. Lots of information on the Bamboo Wiki, so if you go to wiki.ca.com and find CA Cloud Service Management Bamboo from the drop-down, you'll see it there. Lots of information on release notes and getting ready for Bamboo. The community site, you'll see tons of information sort of flowing on that site related to Bamboo over the next weeks. And then our YouTube channel, which you'll find links from the community and wiki as well. We'll have more and more updates on new videos related to Bamboo. All the Sidekick videos are already out there, essentially the first 10 videos, so you can check those out. And deep dive webcasts will start in late April, so look at the community for those. We'll do about one topic a week on those big features to make sure everyone's very clear on what the value is for those. The next release, we will be doing a maintenance release. It'll probably come out late June or July timeframe. So a maintenance release will have some bug fixes as well as some nice improvements related to ideas that are on the community. So we'll share those as we get closer. I think some really exciting stuff coming there as well. So lastly, in closing, I will show the team that's behind the product. I think many of you have interacted with one or more of us through the years. So Sandeep is head of our core service management. You can see him on the left side there, and customer experience is myself, Rich Graves, and then our boss is Gijo Matthew, and then we have a large team behind us in both the U.S. and in India. Just want to make sure everyone's aware of that, and there's an inbox there that you can always shoot us an email. If you do have any technical challenges, the community and support are always the best place to go first, though. Any other questions on the line? I know we're over, but any questions?
No. No questions.
Okay. There's a couple more questions that have come over the web. Any news on the mobile app for analysts as opposed to the one that's only available for SSUs? That is something we're working on. We're hoping to really have a I don't know if it'll be just having one app, and based on your login, it'll take you to functionality for analysts versus end users. Maybe two apps. That decision hasn't been made, but we are looking at that. Probably over the next 2 to 3 releases, we'll address functionality for mobile analysts. Okay. And there's another question: do we have dates for the other upcoming releases? Not dates that we can share yet for other releases after Bamboo. We are at about a 4 to 5 month cadence for releases. We're going to try to speed that up a bit and get to hopefully quarterly. So you should see, you know, about I think in fiscal years, about 2 more major releases this fiscal year, and CA's fiscal year ends on March 31st of 2016. So more information will be available, and we'll start doing early release validation webcasts for the next release in the June timeframe. Another question: would love to see some webcasts on how to use advanced reporting. Definitely we can do that as well. We have some really knowledgeable folks inside CA that have spent more time on that. To do the easiest stuff, I learned it in 20 minutes. But to do the more complex stuff, there's certainly a learning curve with that, and we can have some webcasts there. Sandeep, any other questions that came in that I'm not repeating?
No, I think you covered all of them.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the phone?
No.
All right. We'll close out. Thanks, everyone, for hanging around. I appreciate you going 6 minutes over with us. And thanks for attending, and look for more information on the community.
No,
thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sanjit, and thank you,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.